96 minutes. That is how close Japan came to the greatest night in their football history before it was ripped out of their hands by a single touch from a substitute. For 95 minutes and change, the team ranked nowhere near the favorites was beating the five-time world champions at a World Cup. They were one breath away from the round of 16, one whistle away from finally burying a curse that has haunted them for almost 30 years. And then Gabriel Martinelli happened. Brazil 2, Japan 1. And the way it was won and the way it was lost is the kind of story you do not forget. Picture the scene. The 29th of June, Houston, the heat hanging thick over the pitch, a stadium split between yellow shirts and blue. And here is a detail almost nobody mentioned that night, but it matters. The 29th of June is the anniversary of the day Brazil won their very first World Cup back in 1958. The most decorated football nation on earth, playing on the most sacred date in their history, and for most of this match, they were losing. Losing to Japan. Sit with that for a second, because Japan did not park the bus and pray. They came to play, and they struck first. 29th minute. A loose Brazilian pass in midfield, a careless one, and Sano pounced on it like he had been waiting his whole life for that exact mistake. He took a touch, looked up from the edge of the area, and lashed a right-footed shot past the Brazilian goalkeeper. 0-1. Japan in front against Brazil at a World Cup. The Samurai Blue fans behind the goal lost their minds, and you could see it on the Brazilian faces. This was not in the script. This was not supposed to happen on this date, against this opponent in front of this crowd. Now, you have to understand what was sitting on Brazil's shoulders in that moment. This is a team carrying 5 stars, the most successful nation in the entire history of the sport, and they are now being coached by Carlo Ancelotti, the most decorated manager in club football, a man who has won everything there is to win in Europe, now staking his reputation on dragging Brazil back to the top of the world. And here he was, on the touchline, watching his superstars get picked apart by a Japanese side that simply refused to be intimidated. The pressure was suffocating. 1 goal down, the clock ticking, the whole planet watching, and the smell of one of the biggest upsets in years drifting across Houston. Brazil needed a hero, and just before the hour mark, they got a flash of one from the most unlikely source. 56th minute, Gabriel Martinelli, a center-back, floated a ball into the box, and there was Casemiro, the old warrior, rising above everyone to power a header past Zion Suzuki in the Japanese goal. 1-1. Relief poured out of the Brazilian bench. Surely now, surely, the favorites would take over and put the underdog away. That is how this script is supposed to read. It did not read that way. Because Japan did not fold. They did not sit back and invite the wave. They traded blows. They had chances to win it. And the longer it stayed level, the more you could feel the panic creeping into Brazilian veins, because every minute that ticked by was another minute closer to the one thing Brazil could not afford. Another minute closer to a result that would shake the whole tournament. And here is the statistic that turns this from an upset into a piece of history that almost happened. Japan have been at multiple World Cups. They have reached the knockout rounds before. They have led Belgium. They have beaten Germany and Spain in group stages. They have given the world some of its best stories. But in their entire history, Japan have never, not once, won a knockout match at a World Cup. Every time they have reached this stage, they have fallen. And for 95 minutes in Houston, they were standing on the very edge of finally rewriting that story against the biggest name in the sport. You could not have asked for a more perfect stage to break the curse. If you love this kind of behind-the-curtain World Cup drama, do me a favor and subscribe right now, because this tournament is producing nights like this one after another, and you are going to want to be here for them. Because then came the cruelty. Deep into stoppage time, the board went up, and the match looked like it was crawling toward extra time. Japan were almost there. Almost. And Brazil threw everything forward in one last, desperate surge. The ball broke loose around the Japanese box, bodies everywhere, and it fell to Gabriel Martinelli, the Arsenal man who had come off the bench precisely for a moment like this. 96th minute. He did not hesitate. One strike and the net rippled, and the Japanese players dropped to the turf as if the ground had been pulled out from under them. 2-1. 6th minute of stoppage time. Heartbreak does not even begin to cover it. Think about what that single moment did. It sent Brazil into the round of 16, and it sent Japan home, again, with the same wound they have carried for decades, ripped open one more time, and somehow deeper than ever, because this time they were seconds away. Seconds. And here is the detail that makes it almost poetic, almost too much. Brazil is home to around 2.7 million people of Japanese descent, the largest Japanese community anywhere on Earth outside Japan itself. Two nations bound together by history, by migration, by blood, meeting on a football pitch in Houston, and it was settled in the 6th minute of stoppage time by a goal that broke one country's heart on the anniversary of the other's greatest triumph. This was Brazil's 12th win in 15 meetings with Japan, and on paper, that gap tells you the favorites did their job. But anyone who watched it knows the truth. Brazil did not dominate. Brazil survived. Ancelotti's men topped their group with a draw against Morocco and wins over Haiti and Scotland, and they walked into this game expecting to stroll. Instead, they were taken to the brink by a Japan side that ran out as group runners-up and played with more belief than half the so-called giants in this tournament have shown. Ancelotti will take the win, of course he will, because at a World Cup nobody remembers how, they only remember who advanced. But he will know, deep down, how close his whole project came to collapsing on the most symbolic night of all. And now the road gets harder. Brazil march on to the round of 16, where on Sunday in East Rutherford, New Jersey, they will face the winner of Ivory Coast against Norway, with the weight of a nation that expects nothing less than a 6-star sitting heavier on their backs with every round. The dream is still alive, but the warning has been served. If a Japan side that has never won a knockout game can drag the 5-time champions to the 96th minute, then nobody in this tournament is safe, and Brazil of all teams now know it. And here is the part that will keep Japan awake at night. This was not a team clinging on by their fingernails and getting battered for 90 minutes. Look back at the chances. Japan had openings to make it 2-0, clear sights of goal where one more clinical finish would have put the game out of Brazil's reach, and probably out of the tournament's reach too. They chose, consciously or not, to protect what they had rather than go and kill it off. And at this level, that decision is almost always punished. Ancelotti, meanwhile, was rolling the dice from the bench. He threw on fresh legs, he pushed his fullbacks higher, he gambled on chaos in the box because chaos was the only thing left, and the gamble landed in the 1 minute that mattered. That is the brutal margin between heartbreak and history. One more Japanese goal, or one fewer Brazilian substitution, and we are telling a completely different story tonight. A story about the day the curse finally broke. Instead, the cameras found the Japanese players face down on the turf, some in tears, staff crouching over them, while the Brazilians sprinted to the corner flag in disbelief. Same pitch, same 96 minutes, two nations living in two completely different universes. So I want to hear from you. Was this a great escape by Brazil and proof of champions finding a way? Or did Japan throw away the night of their lives by sitting on a result they should have killed off long before stoppage time? Did Brazil win it, or did Japan lose it? Drop your verdict in the comments, hit like if this one had your heart in your throat the way it did mine, and subscribe because we are only in the round of 32, and this World Cup is already serving up endings nobody saw coming. And trust me, there are more heartbreaks coming before this one is over.